was fun though, running into him. It was just like,
Okay. I saw the recording was on top.
oh yeah, I know that name.
We've got a quorum. Huh?
Yeah, we should be able to move through hopefully pretty quick.
I'm worried about the next two. The two, education and healthcare. That should be a tough one.
Yeah.
How's Joe?
He's good.
Okay, everybody.
You doing okay?
Yeah.
We'll do a welcome call to order for the Tuesday, June 6, 2017 GPA meeting. Mark, do you want to handle the roll? Or
Mr. Langen,
present?
Mr. Donahue, absent. Mr. Dowd,
Present.
Mr. Chavone, absent. Ms. Ferraro,
Here.
Ms. Whitaker,
Here.
Mr. Copland.
Present.
Solicitor Lucius,
Present.
and Northampton County staff attending: Tim Herlinger, Mark Hartney, Dave Hughes, and Sarah Ortiz.
Okay. You'll have in your packet minutes from the May 2nd meeting that were sent out the other day.
I'll make the motion to accept them, Sean.
Motion made by Mr. Copland.
Second.
Second, Ms. Ferraro. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Treasurer's report. Dave, want to give us the Chris Berman 2-minute drill?
Starting with the checking account, opening balance was from the last meeting, $62,551.50. During the month, there were 2 checks to Norris McLaughlin, which the deposits had been received and recorded in the previous month. One for $27,991.50 and one for $12,308.91. There was a check for $3,221.34 to DCED for the administrative work that's done by the department. Riley, $2763.92 check. Norris McLaughlin for work for the GPA, $838. There was a deposit and a check to PMA Insurance for $7,500. That's the first 2 quarterly payments. And then there was a transfer into the checking account for $265,000 from the money market account, and that's for the KIS, 3rd Street, New Bethany, and the Carrigan loans. And the interest was $22.80, leaving a balance of $280,000, $450.63. The IPP started at $750, $586.13, interest $61.69 for a closing balance of $750, $647.82. Hospital Authority, my favorite account, started out $284, $742.08, $4 service charge, interest of $21.06 for an ending balance of $284, $759.14. I will say that when I was at the New Jobs Corps, I ran into Bill Prohl, who is now the market president for BB&T, and I asked him what was going on, and he promised to get back to me about it. We'll see.
You're hammering from the top down. There you go.
I'm going to Dave Kennedy next. IFIP, because the balance is under 1,000, there was no interest, and the closing balance $142.93. Loan and development, $500,730.15, $20.58 interest for a closing balance of $500,750.73. Money market started out at $1,151,994.40. We withdrew the $265 that went into the checking account. There was 2 deposits, each of $482.80. That's the hope repayment on the loan, and the interest is $123.55 for a closing balance of $888,083.55. Professional development, $3,755.84, 46 cents interest for $37.56.30 for a closing balance.
Okay. A motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Dowd. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's see.
We also have a request, on the one, I have included the invoices up to the year, and we had one invoice which was just recently approved. And Sean, I think you're the one who's probably more familiar with this. Salt Communications for $9,775.07.
Yep. Yeah, I met with Sol Communications 3 times over the last about month and a half. They're going to be packaging up and putting together everything relative to the P3 for us going out to basically market. So creation of the website, all the backup relative to that stuff. We're going to be working on that over the next few weeks and getting that rolling.
And just to reiterate, Sean, before he signed anything, did call me and said, "Is it okay?" And I reminded him that at the last meeting, the board did adopt a resolution approving this matter. So everything is squared away. And just as background, there is a major conference in October of the Pennsylvania Economic Development Association. This fall conference is being held at the Renaissance in Allentown, and this project is one of the matters that is going to be presented at that conference, and people from all over the state will be attending this conference from various counties. So it kind of ties in. The reason I mention this, it ties into what work Sean's doing in terms of branding this project as not only a P3, but also as a Northampton County GPA County P3 project.
Yep.
I also have brochure that I copied on Sol. If anyone has any questions, that's there too. I'll pass them around if anybody wants to take a look at it.
We also have Mark Schiavone and Sean Donahue that have joined us, who are here as of now.
Do you need a motion to approve these?
That was already done.
That was already
Basically, it was
approved, Mike.
And under that resolution as well, we were looking at doing the PFM agreement and the oil. The county has since decided to take those two under their wing and took care of those, so we don't have those to approve as previously discussed. So.
And just one thing for the board to know, the actual total contract is for $68,425.50.
I will just add one statement that this project has gotten much notoriety around the state and beyond the state. And even, I'll say last week, I received a phone call from somebody in London about it who wants to publicize it in a bulletin that comes out of London.
Good.
And I have one other request. This is for Sarah Ortiz to go to the community college and take 2 courses for QuickBooks. Each course is $149. I certainly encourage it so that she can kind of take over the responsibilities for QuickBooks as soon as possible. So the total would be $298.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Dowd, I'm sorry, who seconded? Helene second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And let me just add my thanks for that.
Yeah, there you go. Anything else at the community college? I mean, available? I mean, anything professional development-wise? I know you've been going to the, not NDC. Yeah, NDC. NDC, yeah.
I passed, and my
Is there going to be
certificate's in the mail.
Is there going
My
to be a
certificate-
graduation party? That's all we care about. Clam
Well,
bake?
it depends, if the GPA wants to pay for
There you
a little event somewhere.
I can tell you that when I left the house this morning, my wife reminded me that she and our daughter are going to some sort of knife enrichment class tonight at the community college. So if you're looking,
Knife skills.
your knife skills, thank you.
No, great, super. As you'll be removing all cutlery from the house. Very good. Okay. Public comment? Seeing none. Old business, statement of financial interest form.
We are still looking for some statement of financial two.
The door will be locked at 9 a.m. You will not
You
be
know
allowed to
who you
leave.
are. If you need help, we're happy to help you. We'll send you the link. But please get those. They were due in May, so we're technically out of compliance there.
So are you letting the people who don't know, who haven't gotten it done, are you notifying them?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
For once, I'm not a scofflaw. Mine was in.
I think I'm okay.
We'll see that Mark sees to reaching out to those two people. Okay, new business. Morningstar bond inducement.
Yeah.
6.1.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Susan Drabick, who's here from Morningstar Senior Living to talk about their project in Nazareth.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This seems very formal.
It's not.
I don't have any cutlery or knife skills. I'm not dangerous, hopefully. Thank you very much. I'm Sue Drabick from Morningstar Senior Living. We are actually Moravian Hall Square with a new name. That name was changed in 2012 because we're a growing organization, and the name Moravian Hall Square is associated with our Nazareth campus. You may be familiar with it. We've been there since 1988. At Moravian Hall Square in Nazareth, and we now own home care agency called Senior Solutions, and of course we're expanding to a second campus in Upper Nazareth Township called Heritage Village, which is where the funding would come in. The funding that we're asking for, I believe, is about $34 million. It will likely be less than that, somewhere closer to the 30 to 32 million, but the actual request is for up to $34 million. We're doing this project in Upper Nazareth Township in phases. It is approved for 143 independent living cottages and townhouses on 50 acres that we've acquired. This project has been 11 years in the making, believe it or not. We did run into a few roadblocks locally with neighbors and so forth, but we resolved those. So we're starting phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is 29 units, 19 units. Phase 2 is 29 units. All of those are independent living units. There's no plans for nursing care or personal care at any time soon, but that could happen someday. These folks will come and live at Heritage Village. We already have depositors that have given us funds for phase 1, and we're working on phase 2 right now. If they need future nursing care or personal care, they would receive that at Moravian Hall Square, and that's part of the contract that we pledged to them. We also own a foundation called Morningstar Senior Living Foundation, which we are a charitable 501c3 organization. So we do support many residents at Moravian Hall Square that have run out of money on medical assistance and or private funding. If you live in personal care or in independent living, there is no state funding for that, so we do support them. That support is approaching about $900,000, almost $1 million a year that we're supporting people who've run out of funds. So I am open for questions if there are any. I do appreciate your consideration for sponsoring this bond issue.
How is your new community doing?
The Heritage Village?
Yes.
Is under construction, literally. Its site work has commenced about a month ago, and building construction is about to commence. So there's no one living there yet, but we have some very anxious depositors.
I bet.
Who, of course, as you know, they typically want to know, well, when do I sell my home? Because when am I going to move in? So the first move-in is scheduled for March of 2018. And then the majority of them will move in throughout 2018 into phase 1, and phase 2 hopefully will overlap that.
Great.
But John was telling me about Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, whose home he bought in Bethlehem, and they moved it to Moravian Hall Square in 1988. So we have a lot of people in the Easton, Bethlehem area that bought homes of folks that project was delayed pretty significantly.
It was.
I remember being involved in that very first bond issue for the Northampton County IDA, and
Yes.
it's hard for me to imagine we're going back that far, but
Yeah, we actually, it was an original bank loan in, I think, 1986,
Right.
87 for 13% interest.
Right.
And then once we got up and running, we did seek a bond issue, I
Right.
think in 1989.
That's right.
So,
We do also do loans if you're looking for 13%. We could probably do 12. We'll make it work.
we were talking about interest rates recently. It's hard to believe we
Yeah.
paid that much interest.
It's crazy. Where is the physical location? Where's the
The physical location is about a mile as the crow flies north of Moravian Hall Square campus, just west or northwest of the Borough Park, which is Upper Nazareth Township. So it sits in between
Okay.
Bushkill and the Borough of Nazareth,
Okay.
in a section of Upper Nazareth Township.
Okay.
Peg, I know you're
I
familiar
know.
with that
Oh,
area.
yeah. I was just thinking of all the controversy when they broke ground for Moravian Hall Square, the
yes.
pleasure gardens and
Yeah.
all. And look
I've
at
had
the
to explain
jewel
many
that it
times
is.
what the word pleasure garden really means. It's not what teenagers think it means.
no.
Very good.
Susan, are those, the new units that are being built, are the residents purchasing those? Or are they
Yeah,
just
it's-
renting them?
It's really called a lifetime tenancy. It falls under the Department of Insurance.
Okay.
And it's a life care or continuing care act, continuing care agreement. So
Okay.
literally they're living there and they are not owners. We pay any real estate taxes on their behalf.
That's where I was going.
Very good. So we need a resolution.
There is a resolution in your packet,
Yep.
which was drafted by bond
The one I'm
counsel.
holding when I said we need
It
a
was drafted by bond counsel. I reviewed it.
Okay.
Just as brief background, this transaction will not involve the issuance of bonds. It's basically a private placement where there will not be an underwriter. There is a trust indenture going back several years, but basically Citizens Bank, I think, is providing the entire financing.
It's 20 million and roughly 20 and 10 million. 10 is Univest.
Yeah, so it won't be a case where the authority is issuing bonds that are going to be purchased by an underwriter who then is going to sell them in the open market. Not at all. Citizens Bank, I guess, is participating with Univest, you like that word, and is essentially financing the whole project,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which significantly reduces the soft costs that the Moravian folks, Heritage, would have to pay. It's kind of neat.
Okay. Have you done other projects with them before?
We have not done other projects with Citizens.
Okay.
We did do an RFP, and we had 11 banks that expressed some interest, and then Citizens really gave us and Univest the best deal.
You had 11 banks that had responded to your RFP.
Correct.
That's great.
Wow.
Okay.
So we need a motion to adopt?
Actually, there's a resolution,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
approve the resolution.
because for this, we need to be very formal, and I think, Mark, the TEFRA hearing's right after this meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'll make the motion, Sean.
Okey-doke. Motion by Mr. Copland,
Second.
second
Pleasure.
by Ms. Ferraro. All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. New business 6.2, Shell Building Participation Agreement.
Yeah, in your packet is resolution number 2017-08. This is a resolution approving the authority to enter into a participation agreement with the IDA and the Northampton County New Jobs Corps for the purposes of the Petrucci Shell Building Project, where the General Purpose Authority will be the lead issuer of a subordinated debt to the Petrucci Shell Building project.
This is not actually, this is a resolution authorizing the,
Neil, that's correct. If you recall, we've kind of gone maybe classic full circle. Briefly, should we form an entity? Should the three parties form an entity? Shouldn't they? At one point, the thought process was yes. After further review, do we really need to do that? Is it administratively cumbersome? The conclusion was reached among the three entities that, and we discussed this at the last board meeting because I had a resolution which authorized the formation of an entity, and we said no, the GPA will be the lender, the sole lender. The other two entities will participate so that we basically have 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So this resolution supplements a resolution that was adopted in March to specifically provide that the GPA will be the sole lender, will front all the money, and then concurrently at closing we'll enter into a participation agreement where we'll get the first tranche, if you recall, is $350,000. So the GPA will front $350,000 and immediately get 1/3 from NCIDA and 1/3 from New Job Corps. And then there's another $150,000 that's to be funded at some point later on.
Certificate of occupancy.
Occupancy, that's correct.
When they receive their occupancy permit, the other $150,000 will go into the
and
project.
that will be broken in thirds also?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the participation agreement covers all of this. The participation agreement also, of course, covers what we hope would never occur, but in the unlikely event that the IDA or New Job Corps for some reason went off the reservation and said we're not going to put in our 1/3, then they're either out or their percentage of loan and what they would get is reduced accordingly. So it's kind of a pretty standard participation agreement.
Is there a mechanism to make up that difference in the participation agreement on how that would be funded if that is
The GPA,
an
because
unlikely situation that would occur?
the GPA would actually be, again, the sole lender, so it's fronting all the money. The question is,
Whether they fund it or not?
if another party doesn't, GPA share just goes up by that much more. And I'm trying to remember how I wrote it with my associate, but we may actually have rates and, other rates and remedies too. The logic is, if we were dealing with somebody other than two Northampton County-related entities, my discomfort level would actually increase. But I think for IDA and New Job Corps not to fund this, I think there's political problems beyond legal problems in doing that.
Understood. And then this agreement's being prepared by your firm, and
Yeah.
then will be executed by the chair or the vice chair?
Yes, unless you want unless you want to sign it.
Not,
I'm fine with them signing.
no, just, so it's
Yeah.
reviewed effectively, it'll be reviewed, we're authorizing the resolution. for them to
You're
review
basically,
it.
at this point, you're authorizing the GPA to be the sole lender, subject to the execution by IDA and New Job Corps of a participation agreement pursuant to which they agreed to fund 1/3 of the total amount of the loan.
Yeah, and we're not funding anything until those agreements are signed.
The loan, Sean, this is a classic case where when I used the word concurrently, everything gets funded and signed concurrently, and if it doesn't, well, we're going to sit there and watch Netflix until I resolve it.
Yep, okay. Understood.
I just have one question on the resolution. This indicates J.J. Petrucci Company, Inc., but my assumption is that they're not the actual borrower? Don't they typically have single-purpose entities?
If they do, I'm not aware of what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, we ran into that before. Good point, Sean.
I'm not aware of what.
I mean,
And that'll,
I've seen who the entity would be.
have you started corresponding with Petrucci on the loan documents
I don't even
themselves?
Mark,
Yeah,
So
I don't even
I
know
think
who in the Petrucci camp to correspond with at this
But
point.
I'm presuming that Sean is correct, that there's
Yes.
going to be a different borrower than what you have outlined in this resolution.
is this assignable?
so do we need to approve it with an assuming we're going to approve it, do
What
we
we
approve
can
it
do-
with an amendment that the,
There's a couple of ways we can do this. We can leave it as is, which is, in my view, substantively okay, but not technically correct. You can approve the resolution with the understanding that I will tweak it with Mark to say J.G. Petrucci or
Affiliate.
an affiliate or subsidiary, a subsidiary of J.G. Petrucci or an affiliate,
That's-
and make it more technically correct.
Yep. That would be a good idea.
And we haven't, Mark, I'm not sure who the point person is with J.G. Petrucci.
It's going to be Joe Correa. Joe Correa.
And in the loan documents, I'm trying to remember, I think there was an issue whether Petrucci would guarantee, the parent company. And I think that,
No.
and that was asked and
We
answered,
asked for
right?
that. He
And
said
that
no.
was- And he said no.
And that was
Yeah,
expected.
that's right. So my suggestion, if you're okay with this, I am, is that you approve the motion subject to my tweaking it, making sure that what I send back to Mark covers the point Sean made, rather than saying we'll table it for another day, because it's clearly the intent is J.G. Petrucci, and if he forms a separate entity, I'm comfortable saying, well, that's kind of implied, but let's make it explicit.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the resolution as presented with the addition that John will clarify an affiliate or other subsidiary in some way?
I'll make a motion.
Okey-doke. Motion, Mr. Chavone.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Dowd. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
We covered the staff training request under the bills.
Yep. Hospital and higher ed authorities.
I just wanted to have a brief discussion before we actually have those board meetings. And make sure that you were aware, the hospital authority has funds, the $284,000, but the higher education authority does not have funds. So I just wanted to have a brief discussion and make sure that this board was okay. I would assume that the GPA would pay for any legal things done with the higher ed authority, and make sure that we were comfortable with that.
Would any of the work that would need to be done to wrap and tidy that up? Would that be outside of the normal monthly free services you offer, John?
You mean to tidy up the HEA?
Yeah.
I don't know what work.
I think it's just some minor bylaws stuff.
Let's not get bogged down in billables here, okay? That's not the way we work. Whatever needs to be done to tidy up the HEA, we'll do. You won't see a bill for it, okay? We'll just, the most important thing is this. We talked about whether or not those two entities should even remain in existence. And I think we concluded that there's at least one reason why they should. That perhaps sometime, somewhere down the road, Northampton County may be involved in a situation where it has the opportunity to do what is called bank qualified financing, or the GPA does. And because there is a $10 million threshold, annual threshold on, quote, bank qualified financing for the GPA, having a couple of the other authorities in existence that could possibly be involved in that was a good reason to keep the authorities in place. That once we do the tidy up work, there shouldn't be really much for those authorities to do unless and until asked to do something.
It'll basically be an annual meeting where we elect officers, and that'll be it.
But
unless there's business.
But somewhere down the road, if there's a reason to do a lot of bank qualified financing, those two authorities provide a vehicle. And if it doesn't cost very much money to keep them in place, and it won't, that's fine. And Mark, I can circle back with Dave and you on what we need to clean up in terms of the bylaws or even the articles of incorporation, because one of those authorities was formed, I think, back in the early 70s before the Municipality Authorities Act was updated. And so we'll just do that, and make it clean. The more important thing is with the hospital authority, I don't want to steal your thunder, is that $275,000, whatever it is, we want to get that out of their coffers and into your coffers so you can put it to work for whatever economic development projects, loans, okay, because it's really been sitting there. And you've heard me say before, I've had some heartburn with that in terms of fiduciary duties, because you have more than $250,000 sitting idle in a bank account doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make sure that we document the transfer of that money from the hospital authority to the GPA, whether it's a simple letter agreement or something, so that if some gadfly ever comes out of the woodwork and say, how did you do, what was the authority to do that, we've documented it.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, John.
Is that
Yeah,
helpful?
I mean, I don't think we need any action here when we actually hold those meetings in 10 minutes. We'll take those actions, but I just wanted to make sure that while we were in the general purpose authority meeting, we had that discussion.
And again, I don't want any work that the higher ed authority in particular, but even to be bogged down by, geez, how are we going to pay for this? We'll just do it.
Okay.
It's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff reports.
Just real quickly, before we go into those other meetings, I wanted to update you on a meeting that the department had with Lehigh Valley Industrial Park. I think that was last week, regarding a shell building proposal. So we had been working with LVIP we had been invited to apply for a grant through BB&T. And so we worked with LVIP and LVEDC on a joint proposal to put up a 40,000 square foot shell building on, I think it's lot 12 in LVIP.
7, right?
LVIP 7.
That's a former Bethlehem Steel property. Right. Okay.
So as part of that, they were looking for what kind of resources we could help put into that. And I said, once it's appropriate, we can look at this from the Northampton County Development Partnership perspective, similar to the Petrucci Shell building, of how we want to how each entity wants to participate. And as part of that meeting that we had with them last week, they are looking for equity partners in this project, and maybe for the GPA to participate as much as $500,000, which, based on our initial look, we're waiting to see some more pro formas from them that we can then share with the group. But, plus a grant in the amount to be determined from BB&T, this could be a pretty attractive proposal to the General Purpose Authority. So with that, we're waiting for their pro formas. Once we get more information, we'll formally introduce it to you, but I just wanted to kind of get it on your radar.
So just a quick question. So LVIP is considering developing this on their own, and combination of the General Purpose Authority.
General Purpose Authority, we're going to go to the IDA, the GPA.
As equity partners.
LVEDC may be a financial partner in it. I think their board of directors is kind of looking at that, but there'd be a bunch of partners, and this is in the model of the old tech center projects back in the 90s. I think LVIP was a partner. Ben Franklin was a partner back then. Bedco. They all kind of came together, formed a general.
They formed an entity.
They formed an entity with a general partner.
Conversation.
But it was actually pretty lucrative for the new Jobs Corps, for the participating entities.
It actually was the precursor to the development of Bethlehem Steel property under Act 2, because the first one, I think, was done in '93. I was involved in it. and we didn't have Act Two yet, but it was, okay, let's see if we can start developing a brownfield site. And it did, not that it didn't have some speed bumps, but it ended up being really good. It led to Tech 2 and Tech 3.
Yes. So that's the model we're looking to replicate, but instead of maybe as much of a tech focus, it's going to be more focused on flex manufacturing.
Great. Good stuff.
Any other-
How close is the building to the cigar warehouse?
I think it's across the street.
There you go.
So you're going to keep us surprised and let us know about this before we bid?
Absolutely.
Mike was off.
In the spirit of disclosure, I'm environmental counsel to LVIP. The site is fine.
Oh,
And
okay.
from an environmental standpoint, it'll be fine.
Okay. 8.0, next meeting, Tuesday, July 11th. Do we project having anything on
Right now, I don't think we have anything that the board is going to need to take action on, but, you know,
if something comes up? Yeah, that's always my vacation week. That's why I'm just pointing that out, so.
okay.
Okay, very good. Anything else for the good of the order? Oh, yeah. That just came in
Thank
yesterday.
you. Thank
Krieger
you.
Construction, is that their first milestone pavement?
Yes.
Excuse me, payment? They
Yes.
provided, actually, I gave you my whole copy. They provided all the backup, et cetera. Here we go. Yeah. They provided their first package. It was reviewed by Benish, who is our third-party engineer on this. Benish approved. I need to just go back and look at, like, our administrative, the way we were handling this.
And I'm going to look at it too. I just got this.
To make sure it's in conformance with everything
Right.
we're supposed
Benish
to
is
look at.
doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
George Horace, Greg Kukinski, they are really hands-on. They've been in communication with me. They've just escalated my comfort level on this.
Yeah, they've been good. They've been in contact. I've attended the project meetings in Lehighton. Krieger actually purchased a building to use as their kind of hub there. It's not far off, like, the main. It's on the main. what is it?
Krieger is very engaged. Very
Yeah.
engaged. GPI, Greenman Peterson, their engineering firm, very engaged. They've been communicating with me about entries on the property. This is
Yep.
my comfort level. While I continue to be apprehensive that there's always going to be a surprise, they've really been engaged with each other.
Yeah, so we'll verify that as long as Stan, although Stan Regis doesn't have to sign off on it. I
No,
wanna
but
make
he's
sure he's up to speed. He says
he's
yes.
totally in the loop on this,
Okay.
which is what we want.
Yep. So, subject to that, they're going to be getting their first. And again, we submit to the county. County pays us. We pay them. So, we'll be proceeding in that kind of context.
Do we need a formal action to
No.
approve this or not?
In my view,
So.
the answer is no. I mean, you can always do that, but the reason the answer is no is because you approved all the transaction documents, including the public-private partnership agreement from which this emanates. My view is that unless we have something unusual that is not something that was anticipated, then we may want to do something more formal approval. But if this is just part of the what flows out of the agreement, I'm not sure you want to get bogged down.
Well,
I'll defer to you, Sean. You can do it either way.
I've been kind of given that responsibility.
That's right. You're the authorized.
Had they given me a heads up saying, "Hey, Sean, next week we're going to have this application ready," I would have already reviewed everything to say, "Okay,
Or-
now let me go through and check all my boxes." to
Or
compare with their
let's say
boxes.
we find, God forbid, a catastrophic sinkhole because of a karst condition that's going to require an $800,000 change order. Then we may want to say, well, let's make sure. But if it's routine, I don't know if the board wants to get bogged down in.
Yeah, like their
Okay.
milestone status
Right,
reports,
right.
they gave us the 13
And-
bullet points with subpoints.
That's-
I need to go back and look at our and say, okay, are those the 13
And remember,
things that I'm checking against?
the board formally authorized Sean to be the authorized representative of the GPA for this very purpose. So you have enough things to do.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to give you more.
I'd move they give us a magnifying glass so we can see all of the,
Yeah,
read
but-
all
but-
the
but-
data in the report.
I mean,
It's impossible.
to keep everybody, though, I mean, if I would see anything that I think would be egregious in any way,
Mike?
like my thought would be, hey, they say they're, going to be, all the right-of-way has to be done, or if they have half of it done,
I agree.
they're asking for, I come back and say, hey, what's the board's
And Sean and I
take on?
do talk, and I know that if there's an issue, he will reach out to me, and we'll decide what we need to bring back to the board. Mike, be careful what you ask for, because one response to a request for a magnifying glass may be, you need some younger blood on your board.
I don't know many people 12 who could read this.
If you want to double down on the glasses, you can even get that.
Here we go, Fig.
Telescopic.
Aren't we having engineers review all this?
Yeah, Benish has already,
so-
Benish,
Has reviewed everything. So,
Benish has reviewed
so really,
it and
as far
signed
as
off.
if we're receiving this as the authority board, it's just for informational purposes. Is the bottom line.
yeah, I mean,
But I, for my own edification, if there were 13 things they had to do, Benish said, yeah, I'm going to still. look
he's
at it.
he's still
I
going to
don't
do
wanna-
the double check.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to ever
Okay.
just go, oh, yeah, it's $1.5 million.
So
Don't
we've
send that.
engaged you representing us, Sean, to
Yeah.
do that double check at
Yeah.
the end of the day, and anything that's in variance,
Yeah.
should be presented to the authority. board.
Exactly. That's
What
where
I'm
we're
going to
at.
ask, what I'm going to ask them for on the next go-around is if they think they're going to be submitting something prior to like a meeting or saying it's going to be, hey, it's going to be in, July, give me a heads up, just so
Heads
I
up.
know where,
And also, by the way, anytime you want Benish here for a progress report, Benish is obligated to do that under the documents, has no reservations whatsoever coming in. And George Horace
Yeah.
and Greg have just been phenomenal, Sean.
We met.
Wow.
John and myself and Stan. We went and had lunch with George before we even kicked into the first project meeting, just to say, hey, eyes and ears. You guys are like, you're our representative. We need to make sure we're on the same page. Everything goes great, and they've been on it. So I know.
George told me the last time, don't worry about this. We have it under control.
Got our best 20 guys on it, billing accordingly. Okay. Alrighty. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion, Sean.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Copland.
Second.
Second, Ms. Whitaker. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned, but we're going to hang out and try to
So,
run through this.
in the back of your packets are the agendas for the higher ed and the hospital authority. I thought we'd do the higher ed because that involves this entire board, and then the hospital authority board has a little bit different composition.
Okay.
Do we have officers of?
Which one's first?
Yeah.
Higher ed?
Historically, yes. Who are the officers of this organization?
Who are the ons and who are the offs?
What's that?
I mean, did it,
For the higher ed, it's the same board.
okay. But you're saying do the hospital first or the higher ed first?
Higher ed.
Do the higher ed
Okay.
because it's the same
No,
board.
that's so fine. They're just backwards in the package. I was making sure I had the right one. Okay. Call to order. Higher Ed Authority, Tuesday, June 6th. Mark, do you want to take the roll?
Mr. Langen,
Present.
Ms. Ferraro,
Here.
Mr. Dowd,
Here.
Mr. Copland,
Here.
Mr. Donahue, Ms. Whitaker,
Here.
Mr. Chavone.
Here.
Staff present, Tim Herlinger, Mark Hartney, Dave Hughes, and Sarah Ortiz.
2.0 public comment. Seeing none. New business. Appointment of solicitor.
So this authority, and actually the higher ed authority was included in the RFP when we went out. So the staff recommendation is Mr. Lucius be appointed as solicitor.
I'll move that.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Dowd. Who had the second?
Helene.
Helene Whitaker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Bylaw discussion, 3.2.
And
May I make a suggestion? That that I go back, one of my associates, we look at the bylaws, we'll work with you, Mark. Whatever changes we make to the bylaws need to be made, we make them. If there's any changes to the articles of incorporation that we think need to be made, we make them. We have a resolution at the next meeting, which essentially approves bylaws, articles, and because there hasn't been a meeting for so long, the resolution will include what I call a blanket or a global ratification, ratifying everything the board did over the last X number of years. So we kind of wiped the blackboard clean. We're starting with a clean slate. So if anybody says, did you ever approve this? We start, the entity is existent, but we start fresh. And we have a resolution that just covers all of that.
Do we do something, John, with the officers at that time, too?
Well,
It should be an annual.
thank you,
we could
because you
do it
don't
in an
have
annual meeting.
officers.
Okay.
I just heard that Neil Copeland is the chair.
I second that.
No, but I mean,
We can make that our annual meeting.
you can make that the annual meeting, and because the bylaws will contain the provisions that allow for the election of the officers, so we don't need a separate formal resolution necessarily for the specific officers. We'll just make sure it's covered in the bylaws, and then just at the next meeting you pick who you want.
Sounds good.
And I don't believe we need 2 vice chairs, and we may want to make the officers not as extensive, but I'll defer to you.
Okay. All righty, very good.
Assistant secretaries and assistant.
The more titles you have, the higher the compensation, I think is the rule here, right? Okay, so if you're okay with
Our
that.
multiplier is always 0, though.
Yeah,
That sounds good to me, as long as
Yeah,
the
Mark,
board's good with
I'll
that.
work with Julie, and we'll work with you and Dave to make sure that whatever we need to clean up from a governance standpoint, and then just present it to the board at the next meeting and make it as simple as we can.
Okay, motion for adjournment of the Higher Ed Authority meeting?
So moved.
Mr. Dowd, second, Ms. Ferraro, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, that took a little too long. Can we try to get this Hospital Authority one done a little quicker? Okay.
So the hospital authority is Sean Langan, Peg, Mike, Neil, and County Executive Brown.
Okay. We'll do,
You're welcome to leave it.
May we? May they?
okay, call to order of the Hospital Authority, Tuesday, June 6, 2017. I'll do the roll. Sean, present.
So John's on the board of the Hospital Authority?
yes.
Peg Ferraro,
Here.
Mike Dowd,
Here.
Neil Copeland,
Present.
John Brown.
Here.
See you, Mark.
Thank you. Staff present, Tim Herlinger, Mark Hartney, Dave Hughes, Sarah Ortiz. Public comment,
None.
seeing none. Moving on, new business, appointment of solicitor. John, if you're
Lucius.
available.
Okay.
Motion by Mr. Dowd.
Second.
Second by Mr. Copeland. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bylaw cleanup.
I
Same
recommend we do
discussions.
the same thing here. The one additional component is I'd like, and we'll double check, there's no heartburn with this, but I'd like to include in the resolution, unless somebody disagrees, a transfer of the dollars, unless you wanted to keep them in a separate account. But it seems to me if you put them in with the other funds, that makes the most sense. If nothing else, Dave can avoid a $4 service charge, right, Dave?
Yeah. True. Tell them you're not going to deposit that money until they get rid of that service
But
charge.
do you agree that assuming there's no legal impediment, that you'd move the funds of the HEA into the fund, the general fund
That
of
was,
the GPA?
my question to you when we
Yep.
started looking at this was,
Right.
can we transfer it to the general purpose authority?
I mean, what's resonated with me while I'm driving now and then, when you look at the purpose of the GPA in the hospital authority and even the higher education authority, they have the same purpose. So this is not a case where the money was specifically designated or earmarked in the hospital authority, and you're saying, oh my God, it was supposed to be used for for something new at Easton Hospital, not at all. It just,
And that was my question relative to the bylaws. Is there anything in the bylaws that designates the utilization of any funds that, or assets that are held by the hospital education
This-
authority?
we'll double check that, and if there is, we can change the bylaws. But my recollection is that that this money has been held by the hospital authority going back, many years, Mark? Probably more than 10.
I think it's over a
And I
decade.
think a bond counsel named Ed Fedock had concluded that legally the money is
I
the
believe
hospital authorities.
The money came from a bond issuance that
For
was
Easton
done
Hospital.
with
For Easton
Easton
Hospital, sure.
Hospital.
And Ed Fedock, who I know, my understanding is he made a legal conclusion that the money was the hospital authorities, did not have to go back to Easton Hospital, and unless there's something in the bylaws along the lines of what Neil just described, let's get the money into the GPA general fund. And Julie and I will work with the both of you on all of this cleanup, okay?
The bond issue was probably paid off when CHS bought Easton Hospital. I would-
My understanding is that we researched this, and neither authority has any outstanding bonds of any kind. They've all been satisfied. Right. So this is a great time, well, I said, to leave them in existence, but to clean them up and make sure we're in compliance with applicable law.
And we don't see any contemplative utilization of this authority that would preclude us to having some cash in it.
No.
It's what I don't know is kind of question.
Actually,
Not that we've had discussions around, and I would assume if that fact would ever come up, that a reversal of transference of funds could also be accommodated
Got it.
at that point.
So what this organization really does, it gives another $10 million available for bank qualified
Potentially, yeah.
capacity.
actually, and that's not, over the last couple months, that has become more than a theoretical question,
Right.
as you may know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think into the future, there's.
It's actually been raised.
Bank qualified.
Yes.
Is, the more the county can have, the better off for the development of the counties.
One question that I have, and certainly I defer to you, County Executive, but the composition of this board, would it make sense if we're revising the bylaws to make this look just like the GPA? So that basically all three boards are the same?
I would never have a
or-
quorum issue, you know?
I suspect that John is on the board because the bylaws probably say one of the board members has to be the county executive.
Well, previously, the county executive was always the chair of everything.
Right.
And then
He was on the general,
me to-
still.
I-
We can go back to that, I don't mind.
I get to retire.
Makes my life a lot easier.
My strong preference is
Before you ran.
all of you
It's the door.
all of you are gracious in donating your time. If there's ways to streamline things while staying in compliance, that's my respective recommendation. To deal with different compensations of boards, and then these two gentlemen say, well, for this board, we need this person or that person who's not a member of these other two boards to be here. Do you really want to go through that if we do not need to?
Yeah, and that was going to, John, be my suggestion is to match the board members, but also to match the officers.
Yeah, probably.
Except to.
That really makes it simple.
Except to get rid of all the assistants,
Well-
maybe in these, or maybe just match it to keep it simple.
And you know what, Neil? The reality of it is that if we do bank financing, it is conceivable that we could have a project where more than one authority is involved in that one project.
Right.
And to have to run around and try and track down different officers to sign different
Right.
legal documents is just a pain. So
Please,
I'm
no.
with you completely. And these guys are doing it, so I agree with you completely.
Whatever we can do to simplify, I think would be good.
John, are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to put you on the
Yeah, I
spot.
believe in looking at each of these authorities, it's the role of the county executive to make the appointments.
Right.
It's still the role of county council to confirm those appointments, so.
Yes.
You just keep that in the background as you look to, or whatever change may come from these recommendations, that there is a formal process
Right.
in going
Yeah.
through this, so we may.
Yeah, we would have to.
Depending on what the recommendations are, there's a protocol that needs to be followed for the
I think basically,
realignments.
what we may want to do is just amend the bylaws to say that once you're appointed, you serve till death.
Oh, God. It's a sentence then.
Could be true. All right.
Mike, remember the discussion about Ray DeRaymond?
Okay, so we've appointed John Lucius as solicitor. We know what we're doing with the bylaws, and we also are going to research the 280K, but the general sense is that we're going to try to transfer that over to the GPA. So,
Right.
Okay. And what I'll have for the next meeting, or if it's August, we'll have a resolution that, what I'll call a global cleanup resolution that deals with all of this, okay?
sounds good?
Okay.
Very good.
We can
Motion
have
to-
all that by August?
We're going to target another meeting that is a light agenda
I think the
for this.
funds should be transferred to a bank at Sanibel Island, and we ought to have a committee that tracks down.
Smile for the camera.
You'll take
John.
that?
I'll take the check
Smile,
down.
smile,
Wave.
smile for the camera. Smile for the humor. Okay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Dowd,
Second.
second, Mr. Copland. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for your time. 3 meetings and
Yeah,
got
hour-
on pretty
hour and
good.
10 minutes.
Yeah, it's not bad.
That's it. Thank you. John, did you want to say something else?
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. Everything going okay?
Good to see you as always,
It's always
sir.
a pleasure. You're limping a little bit. Did you hurt yourself?